Okay, hi. This is just a quick private video for a Reddit user, just going through some of the maps and their sort of key points. So first up is Death Aura. This map has been around for a little while. It'll probably be phased out in the next map pool. It's just been around long enough that people kind of have it figured out. So if you look down here in the bottom right, and then you sort of follow the shortest rush path to your opponent, you'll notice that it's really, really long. And this is sort of offset by these three zones in the center. These are acceleration field generators. Units move but don't attack, just move 30% faster while they're in these zones. So this map has sort of a longer aerial rush distance than most maps, but it has the same ground rush distance. And this was sort of the map that they introduced the acceleration field generators in. And you can destroy these rock piles on either side to significantly shorten rush distances. But generally, this map tends to work out where one player sort of takes all of this territory, and the other player takes, the mirror. And there's a lot of tension around this high gas with the choke point and the nearby enemy bases. And it's really very difficult to take your opponent's high gas base because there's this choke point, and then the only other way up is sort of serpentine up here. It's hard to take and keep a hold of. So very standard map, very open engagement areas, normal amount of elevation changes, normal amount of rocks. The big weird thing is this center area. And that sort of defines the map. So on to Juggernaut. So players start in the top right, bottom left. This was the second map with acceleration field generators. They're these weird, big circles. They're really, really big on this map. And this is the biggest map currently in the pool. Offset a little bit by these acceleration field generators, but the auto-pathing of units, or even the most efficient path, it doesn't take them really through the generators, or at least only through one of them. So the generators just really don't tend to play a very big role in this map. The pros tend to play very aggressive, far forward games, because if you don't win very quickly on this map, it turns into this gigantic slog with this split map situation, where it's really hard to push into this base because there's this tight choke, and it's really hard to push into this base because they're already going to be defending this area, and it's hard to push into here because there's rocks and a bush, and it's hard to push into here because it's right next to their main. So just it tends to be these gigantic slog battles. So people tend to like to be a little more aggressive on this map. Yes, aggression is weaker because the map is larger, but they want the map to end faster. And I guess the key part is the center here. And most good maps, the most defining part of the map will be in the center. These corner bases are kind of weird because they're pretty isolated. There's no easy way up. Like if I send an attack up through here, and I'm already right here, my opponent has to come in from behind me to fight me off. So engagements are a little bit weird around the corner bases, but otherwise just very, very standard. Next is Lightshade. This is it's almost a remake of a map that we had a while back. I forget the name, but it's just almost the exact same. The big difference between that map and this one is that this bush on each side, it doesn't extend all the way. That's basically the only difference. It's a very, very wide open map outside of your first three bases. This whole area is just extremely wide open. Definitely favors Zerg attacks in this area. But Terran can also turtle up on three bases pretty well. And they can even extend out and take these bases decently well. This tends to be a pretty balanced map overall. With not a lot of attacks to the center, actually. I know I just said on the last map that most maps will have a lot of stuff in the center, but most of the attacks tend to come from the north, or the south. The routing tends to just favor this out of the center pathing. It's just a very standard map, honestly. There's a choke point here, but the vast majority of all aggression is on the north or the south end of this map. Next is Oxide, which is actually one of our most unbalanced maps ever. And looking at this map, you'll notice it's a lot smaller than the previous ones. The aerial rush distance anyway is very, very tiny. And if we destroy all the rocks on the map, then the rush distance is also quite short. And this tends to be a Terran-favored map, pretty massively. Just because there's a choke point here, there's sort of a choke point here, there's a choke point here, and there's high ground here, and there's like high ground throughout here. So the only place that Zerg can really attack a Terran is through here. And if there's only one place a Zerg can attack you as Terran, you are feeling very comfortable. You just defend that, and no worries. So I think the pro win rate in TVZ here is it's like 67% Terran favored, just because it's so hard for Terran or for Zergs to push in and do anything to the Terran. Terran can just very comfortably turtle up on these bases, deny the space to the Zerg, and outvalue their opponent. As Protoss, a lot of pushes tend to come through here if they're attacking Terran or Zerg, or through here. This is the best attack location in the map, and it's really not that great. It just favors more defensive styles. Pillars of Gold. This is our oldest map currently in the pool. Always gives itself over to these macro games. Cheese just tends to be very weak because the natural has this ramp. So Cheese has to push up the ramp, and cheeses almost never work out. So like aside from maybe like proxy racks, if you're facing Terran, there's just not much to worry about here. It's gonna settle into very steady macro games. One sort of unintuitive feature about the map is that this area tends to belong to this player. And the reasoning for that is that there's not a base right here. So the northern player tends to keep their forces, sort of like this. And then when they move out, this is a very nice place to stage attacks from. And it's not that easy to defend. Like, yeah, it's on high ground, there's a choke here, but this ramp is very, very wide. And if the northern player pushes through here, and they come up in here, then it tends to be hard to defend. So defenses are focused around here, and then around here. You don't tend to see this sort of shape. You can, but it's just rarer. This sort of diagonal area, very standard, just a normal sort of arena to fight in. These are the key positions in the map, especially if you're attacking. Next is Romanticide. Romanticide has this very easy to access rich geyser that's blocked off by a mineral wall. Not only that, but it has a back entrance over here. So just the third and maybe fourth shape is very weird. This base tends to be fairly easy to defend if you can mine out these minerals. But generally you want to start your fourth before you can mine out the minerals, and then that makes this fourth very hard to take. So this is normally like a fifth or a sixth base. You can go aggressive and take it earlier, but it's just harder to defend. Because pushes through here can threaten both of these bases, and you can't defend here very easily. So you have to defend here, and you have to defend here, which splits your army, and it just makes it very difficult to fight. But once you can push out and secure this whole area, then that's a little bit easier in the far late game. So Zerg tends to expand this way so that they can take this base as their fourth, because they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they come back and take this and this. Because at that point in the game, the action tends to be on the opponent's side of the map. But just keep in mind that there's some really deadly Terran pushes through here, where they drop a mule right here to mine out this mineral patch, and they don't even return the minerals, and then they just walk their army up through here, and then maybe they drop a mule here to mine out one of these mineral patches, and then they siege up all these tanks right here. It's very, very difficult to beat. That's about it, really. There's not too much more that's interesting about the map. The vertical third that I mentioned is deceptively hard to defend, because you have a choke here, and this is blocked off. But and this is fairly hard to access. If you're going to go up this way, just attack through here rather than coming all the way up like this and having to deal with another high ground push. But this route makes it really easy to kill this base, and you can push through here at the same time. And finally, Submarine. This tends to be our cheesiest, most aggressive all-in-y map, just because it's a small map. These rocks lengthen, these 4 rocks lengthen the rush distance so that it's not completely absurd, but it's still several seconds quicker to rush on this map, and seconds matter a lot when you're doing an all-in or a cheese. Plus, each side only has 6 bases, and this base is almost impossible to take for this player, and it's too close to this player for this player to ever take it. So really, you only have like 5 bases. You can take your first 2. That's reasonable, and you can take these 2. That's also reasonable. This one is a little harder because these are bushes, so it's hard to deal with these pushes. And you can never take this because there's high ground to assist with a push, and it's so far away from your main, and there's bushes that come down here. So it tends to favor 2 to 3 base all-ins. A lot more than any other map. I don't know what race you play, but if you're playing against Terran, and you're not playing as Terran, all you have to do to beat Terran on this map is confine them to these 4 bases and survive their initial siege tank with a mine pushes. And then just be patient, and they'll starve themselves out. Yeah, it tends to be a Terran favored map because it's hard to do those 2 things, but it's also probably going to be phased out pretty quickly here. So that's the ladder pool. Let me know if there's any other questions, or if there's any features that you were looking for that I didn't cover, but I'll stop the video here.